G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. Let's go. Am I the a-hole for banning my 8-year-old nephew from my place until my sister replaces my stuff that my nephew lost or broke? I, 30 female, practically raised my 8-year-old nephew and I love him as my own. My sister, 28 female, used to work afar, so she had to leave him in my or my mother's care when he was a baby. 3 years ago, she found a job and a house nearby, but my nephew still spends his weekdays in my place and only goes to my sister's place during the weekends. My nephew tends to be careless with everyone's stuff, but he's especially careless with mine. I think because he's closest to me and has no restrictions. He's already broken 2 phones, 2 eyeglasses, 1 laptop, and so many other things. I just chalk it up to him being a kid and therefore never get mad. But when he turned 8, I started teaching him about boundaries. That when I tell him something is hands-off, then he must not play with it. A concept he is really having a hard time with. Yesterday I saw him fiddling with the contact lenses I just bought the other day. I told him it's a hands-off because I will need to wear it for an office party later and that I wouldn't have any backup because he just broke my eyeglasses. An hour before the party, all I have to do is wear my contact lenses, and voila! They're missing. When I asked my nephew, he admitted to have dropped it. We looked for it to no avail, and I ended up not being able to go to the office party. This is the only time I got really mad. I got mad that he didn't listen to me for the nth time, and that he didn't even bother picking it up after dropping it, because to me, that shows his lack of respect to me. Sure, I can buy a new pair again, just like what I've done several times in the past, but I really wanted to teach him a lesson about boundaries and respect, and in my perspective, the best way to do that is to show him the consequences. So I dropped him to his mum afterwards and told both of them that he will be banned from my place until they replace either the contact lenses that he lost or the eyeglasses that he broke. My sister does not agree with my method. Said I'm being petty for getting mad over it, and she would rather spend money on food. My mother thinks that I'm being harsh considering it will be Christmas soon, and that my nephew is still too young to understand what I'm trying to teach him. I felt I was right, but now I'm not sure. Am I the a-hole for banning my 8-year-old nephew to teach him about consequences, considering that it will be Christmas soon? In the comments, everyone sucks here. First off, 8 years old is old enough to understand the basics of what is a toy and what is not. Someone has failed in teaching him this. And while I understand you are not the parent, but you're an adult and you know his track record, and you should have taken steps to just taken the lenses away from him. His mother should also take responsibility, and if not pay all, then some of the values of what he breaks. And the kid desperately needs to learn that there are consequences to his actions, although banning him is a bit overkill because neither the mother nor you have the guts to give him a form of punishment, like a timeout corner, no game time, do some extra chores. You haven't mentioned anything in the way of punishment, only a command word that apparently is not enforced or punished, so he will never truly learn. This isn't the case of spilling some milk. He is physically destructive, and it will become a problem eventually if it's not addressed sooner rather than later. OP replies, I haven't tried extra chores or a timeout corner, but I have grounded him and restricted game time in the past. His mother and I have talked to him about his behavior before, and he started being more careful with others' stuff, just not mine. That's how I concluded that it could be because we are too close, he doesn't believe I could get mad at him, so he continues breaking and losing my stuff. I can accept being the butthole, but most of the "you're the a-hole" comments are just stating their opinions without any recommendation. I mean, fine. So you think I did poor in raising the kid, but what do you suggest I do specifically in this case? Well, have a serious talk with him. Perhaps talk to his mother beforehand and agree on what to say and what punishment to have, where you explaining to him that you are hurt, that he is breaking your stuff, and this will not be acceptable going forward. Say something to the effect of, he is a young man now and must be more aware of his strength, so he has to be more careful. However, should he break something expensive because of carelessness, he will have to help pay it back. This is what my mum had my brother do. His allowance went towards fixing a car door for months. He got around €10 that my mum showed him the bill and put in a box marked car door and marked how much of it was in it each time. I think this went on for a couple of months. If he doesn't get an allowance but you can afford it, maybe start doing some physical activity with him. Say that if he manages to not break anything when visiting, once a week or twice a month, you will take him to some sort of activity center. Climbing, bowling, whatever. Rewards are just as important as punishments. He's a growing boy. He might just enjoy testing his strengths. If after all of this he continues to regularly break your stuff, make it very clear that he will not be allowed to visit for X amount of time, and that the time will be determined on if it was intentional, in a fit of rage for example, and expensiveness, if he breaks glasses or like PCs. Just a few suggestions at least. And perhaps make sure that he understands being banned from the apartment does not equal you not wanting to see him. He could just be a clumsy child like me, and some of this is genuine accidents. And him feeling like you don't like him because of that doesn't seem fair. OP replies, "Thanks. I think I'll make him do chores at home to pay back what he lost. His only chore at home is to wash his own plate, so making him do more might send a clearer message. I already take him to the mall, playground, and resort every other week because that's just how we bond. I don't think he'll see it as a reward." Everyone sucks here. You are all doing a pretty poor job of raising this child. He should have been taught not to mess with other people's stuff as soon as he was able to get it. You said you've let things go until he was 8, which is way too long. No wonder he thinks it's fine to break stuff, if it's always been fine. You and your sister and your mother and any other responsible adult in the kid's life need to get your act together. You're the asshole for waiting until he's 8 years old to begin teaching him boundaries. He's gotten away with everything until now, and then you punish him with taking away his weekdays home? That's really not fair. The punishment is too harsh. Let him come back, but have him work out his debt for the broken things by doing housework for you. He needs to be raised properly. And now, on to the update. Thank you to all who gave their feedback. I just talked to my nephew, and he agreed to write a whole-page essay to reflect on his actions, and to wash the plates at home for 2 weeks to pay for what he lost. I agree that banning him from my place might be too harsh, but to clarify, it isn't like I didn't try to talk to him or discipline gently when he was younger. His habit has mellowed down towards other people's stuff, but not towards mine, which I conclude is because of his total lack of fear of me. I am not fond of punishments or discipline by fear because I grew up in that kind of environment. I think I want to be his security blanket because I didn't have one growing up, but it can be a struggle to balance things out. I appreciate all of those who gave their advice. In the comments, if they think that 8 is too young to learn basic boundaries, no wonder the kid behaves like that. Of course Mum thinks the kid is too young. She's never around her kid except to babysit on weekends. My daughter understood, not yours, meant not to take or touch an item from the age of 1. She's 3 now and never disturbs any of our electronics, consoles, TVs, phones, etc. She is loved and protected practically to the point of coddling, but she understands boundaries. I honestly do not understand how people allow it to get to this stage. Our next post is titled, "My married next-door neighbor is cheating on her husband with at least 2 different guys during the day while he's at work. What would you do?" Me and my boyfriend moved into our place almost 3 years ago, and sometime last year, a new couple in their mid-30s moved in directly next door. Terraced, 2-level houses, so we share a wall. We both have 2 upstairs bedrooms, and it quickly became apparent that they chose the room that shares a wall with our bedroom, as we would often hear them having sex at night. No porn-star level moaning or anything like that, but you can easily make out the movement of the bed and slapping of flesh on flesh. So, enough to be a distraction. We both found it funny at first, but often they would be at it in the very early hours of the morning, especially on weekends, and often multiple times back-to-back with breaks between. It really started to interrupt our sleeping schedule, so we decided just to move rooms, and now our old bedroom is my work-from-home office. While they were both working from home and I was in my new office room, I'd still hear them at it during the day every now and then, but I just put on my headphones and try to ignore it. No big deal, and good on them for having such an active sex life. Once the husband went back to the office working, I was no longer having to reach for my headphones nearly as often, so thought that would be the end of it. A few weeks after him going back to work, however, the midday sex noises starting up again, even more enthusiastic and frequent than before, which was odd, as her husband's car was not parked outside. I also noticed a pattern of hearing their doorbell go shortly before the sex started, and after going full nosy neighbor mode and peeking through our blinds almost every day, I noticed that a guy was parking his van just up the road, popping in next door for an hour of fun, and then heading back out. Not only that, but I've even spotted a different guy turning up every now and then. I've been cheated on before, albeit in a much more casual relationship when I was younger, and think it's one of the most disrespectful and hurtful things that someone can do to another person. It makes me so sad for her husband, and hearing her go at it with these guys on an almost daily basis is getting me increasingly annoyed and angry. My boyfriend says I just need to ignore it, and it's not worth getting caught up in these things. I kind of agree, but I also feel like making some kind of anonymous tip-off to let her husband know somehow. What do you guys think? And P.S., she was already halfway through her second round with one of the guys this afternoon when I started typing this. In the comments, I would ordinarily say keep out of it, but if it's disturbing your day or sleep, you could ask the husband to keep the midday hanky-panky down. You're not explicitly mentioning the cheating that way, but he'll go off and find out. Either that, or she'll knock the cheating on the head. Besides, for all you know, they might have an open relationship or something. What would I do about the cheating? Nothing. It is zero of my business. Maybe this is the deal. Maybe he knows. Maybe he's bonking 17 people at work. Maybe he's a violent craphole and will stab her in the neck when he finds out. You know nothing at all about their relationship. You are not their friends or family, and you have no business messing in it. That said, if someone next door is having sex loud enough to bother you then, regardless if it's an affair, a monogamous couple, or a wanker, you can say something. It's super embarrassing, but I would be very tempted to go around the daytime and say, "This is really embarrassing, but I can hear you having sex in the daytime, and I'd rather not." I guess if you wanted to explode things, you could go around in the evening when he's there and say the same thing. But to be honest, it kinda sounds like you'd like their evening sex to be quieter too, so perhaps don't risk replacing that with these screaming rows about infidelity. My first wife cheated on me. I just wish someone had the respect for me to tell me before I figured it out way down the road. All the people saying none of your business is one of the things I hate the most about this country. Everybody is just indifferent to everything and are too scared to do anything. The husband deserves to know, so write an anonymous email or letter, add him with a fake account on Facebook, message on his work email. None of it has to come back to you, but he deserves to know. And I would consider it your responsibility to tell him once you found out. F cheaters. And now, on to the update. Thanks for the wide range of replies, everyone. For those saying mind my own business, I get that to an extent, but it kind of becomes my business when it's distracting me from work on a daily basis. There has been a few times that I've had calls while it's been going on, and I've just had to pray that the noise cancelling from my mic is doing its job and to be extra quick on the mute button when I'm not talking. A lot is saying to separate the two issues, which seems like good advice. After all, it's the noise that's impacting me personally. Even if it was her and her husband, that would still be a major annoyance for me. In fact, even though we've moved rooms, we can still hear them most nights, and often early mornings too. I honestly don't know how she can manage so much sex. Admittedly, the cheating aspect, assuming it's not some kind of open relationship thing they have going on, which seems unlikely, but yes, I suppose it is possible, is adding to my emotional response for sure. But ultimately, that's between them, not me. As much as I empathize with the husband, again, assuming he's unaware, I do agree with a lot of the comments here that it's not my place to out her and not worth being in any way involved with the potential fallout. My boyfriend also shares this view. Reporting to council/police just doesn't seem like an option. I mean, it is, but it would be obvious that it was us who complained, and neither of us want to go down that path. I think I'll have to try to pluck up the courage and maybe try to bring it up casually the next time I see her on her own and just hope for the best. On the bright side, their neighbor on the other side is an older guy who is practically deaf, so if they at least swapped rooms like we did, there's less chance of the neighbors hearing them at it. And now, onto the final update. Well, turns out there was a twist after all. After all my moaning, my boyfriend got talking to the guy out the back over the weekend and, as sensitively and politely as possible, brought up the subject of the noise, and well, long story short, they are adult content creators. Obviously, he never mentioned anything about the guys showing up, but we think it's probably safe to assume he is well aware. The husband was also very apologetic and admitted they were both worried about noise, but figured it must not be that bad as we'd never mentioned anything all this time and that they tend to not hear much from us. It turns out the wife is now doing this as her main job and quit her previous job months ago, and they already planned on turning their spare room into their studio, which, if happens, should mean much less noise for us. Kudos to all of you that called me out for being so presumptuous that she was cheating. Lesson learned, not to jump to conclusions. In the comments, I can't believe it took that long to say anything. Even just a quick knock on the wall to make it known they can be heard? Seriously? Based on the spelling, OP might be British, and banging on the wall, while effective, is a fairly American solution. Source: I married into a British family. Best way to discreetly handle this? Catch the husband alone and tell him that you don't want to be a bother, but you'd like it if him and his wife could refrain from loud intercourse during the middle of the day. Now he knows all he needs to make sure his wife isn't cheating and keeps the noise down. But why even bother hinting at it though? Just say the truth. Hey, I've seen some other guys come over while you're away and sex noises after he enters the house. I want to make sure that you know this is happening. Where's the problem in the truth? You've made no assumptions, only observations. No one would ever be mad at you for this, except the wife, which the husband shouldn't rat you out. If the husband knows already, then he will not care. If he doesn't, he will be very happy to find out. Our next post is titled, Stepdaughter says she hates me and wished I'd get COVID so I wouldn't be around anymore. So I have a stepdaughter who is 14. I've been with her mother since she was 4, she doesn't see her biological father at all, his choice, and he has played no role in her life. I'm the only father figure she's really had other than her grandfather. We used to be fairly close, up until she was around 12 or so, and then it was like someone had flipped a switch. She's constantly disrespectful, says hurtful things, like she wishes I was dead, and even goes to great lengths to avoid seeing me or being near me. She is only ever nice to me if I have something she needs or wants, like money, or if I'm making her food or something. So her school called our house phone today to see how she was, and made sure that she had all she needed to do her schoolwork as we are back in lockdown. She brought the phone back into me after the call, and I asked if everything was okay. We had a semi-normal conversation for a change, until she said she wanted to go back to school. I told her she couldn't, as her mum is extremely vulnerable, and if she got COVID and passed it on to her, she would get extremely ill. Stepdaughter said, if I passed it to you, would you survive? So I said, I don't know. And she replied, well, I hope you get it, and don't, then you wouldn't be here anymore. I've spoken to my wife repeatedly about the things she says, and she has spoken to her, but the response she gets is that my stepdaughter hates me, and always has, and anytime she's been with me, like when I took her to the football or went out geocaching with her, she was faking enjoying spending time with me. And all those times in the past when she said she wants to call me dad were fake too. It breaks my heart. I feel like I've done something to change her view of me, but I don't know what, as she won't say. She won't give a reason why she says she hates me, and she always has. I tend to stay out of her way, to avoid it at all, which makes me sad and it causes tension with my wife sometimes. Is this normal behavior? My wife says it's normal teen girl lashing out behavior, but even her friends have pulled her up on it when they've been around in the past and heard what she says to me. I tend to let it slide mostly, but that COVID thing, that was harsh. Edit, so this is blown up way more than I expected. Thanks for all the responses. There is much for us to look into. Much to my surprise, she's decided to spend the evening with us playing a board game with just me and my wife, which is good, as it allowed us to have a proper chat. My wife has got her to apologize, and I told her how much that stuff hurt me. We've gone through some stuff briefly, and she is very anxious about school, her life, where she fits in the world. We think she may have anxiety, as she's worrying about things she shouldn't be, and things she thought that we'd be mad about but aren't really. Her choice of partner, and what she wants to focus on exams-wise, and I just told her that I want her to be happy, and whatever she chooses to do, I will support her. In the comments, oh ouch. My gut response is this is about her bio dad. She's old enough to understand that he had a choice and knew what he chose. It's easier to project that on you. Also, her mum being vulnerable is scary for her, and probably makes her feel guilty along with resentment. Add in COVID and homeschooling plus social media, she's got a lot on her preteen plate. It could be feelings bubbling up that she doesn't even know how to process yet. It comes out in angry, dark comments that are super concentrated. I was a really depressed teenager, and I feel so bad still for things that I said to my parents. I didn't mean them, at least not how an adult would interpret them. Hard as it is, I would suggest trying to separate yourself from who she is aiming at and acknowledge that she isn't talking to you. She's talking to her own projection of you, which is likely a weird combo of you and her dad. It might help it sting less so you can remain grounded and supportive in helping her navigate some dark stuff. And OP replies, I'm now thinking that too. He left when my stepdaughter was 2 and her brother was 2 weeks old. So she barely knew him. She does ask about him, but as he's gone silent, we have no details of where he is, and he's never reached out. He's not at his last address, and although he has contact details for us, but he's never used them. Nor has he ever paid any child support or anything either. My wife doesn't really want to see him as he was violently abusive to her, but was willing to allow him to see the kids supervised. He has never responded though. You could be right. Maybe she's taking the rejection out on me. I don't react or snap back when she says these things to me, I just brush it off. But with all the anxiety about COVID going about, it hit a nerve. She knows I'll have her back whatever happens, I tell her all the time, but to go from being quite close to this, it's hard. And now, onto the update. Hello all. You may have seen my previous post about the issues I was having with my stepdaughter. Well, I didn't know where to put this, but I just had to put it out there. So yesterday, I took my youngest, my biological son, to the park, and much to my surprise, she wanted to come too. Cue the following conversation. She says, "Can I tell you something?" And I say, "Yes, of course." "You do know that I don't actually hate you, right? I just wanted you to know that." So I said, "Thanks for telling me. I love you too." I feel so happy now. We are in such a better place, and it's a load off. Her general attitude around me is much better, and I think she now knows that I'm there for her for good. It has helped. I just wanted to post this somewhere as it's brightened lockdown up so much knowing that. For anyone else, stick at it. Step parenting is so hard, but it is worth it in the end. In the comments, my kids hit puberty during COVID. Would not recommend. Same, it's been tough. She's a great kid, but she's had a rough go of it since then. My mom says that a switch flipped when I became a teenager, but the only difference was that I started yelling back at her. She would scream and yell and say horrible things because she was insanely stressed out, and by then I just started imitating her and throwing it back. It was so frustrating for her to just tell everyone that I was an insane child and that I was just being a stupid teenager, so none of my concerns got addressed. No one believed me when I would talk about the abuse I suffered either, because I was just going through puberty. I just hope that parents don't see this post as a justification and validation for their children actually expressing concerns and pain to them. When kids lash out, it's almost always because they learned that behavior, not a judgment on you. I'm sure you're great, just a general statement. As soon as I hit 13, my parents justified their verbal and emotional abuse of me by saying, "She's just being a typical teen." It was like they were waiting till the day that I turned 13 so they could use it as an excuse. My mum would say smugly about how she'd talked to this or that person about me, and they'd agreed how difficult teenagers were. It really hurt because I was a damn good kid actually, and it sounded like she was going around telling everyone what a trial I was and having them on her side. I do remember that she had been starting to get physical and slapped me one day, and I had enough and slapped her back. She looked furious and slapped me again, so I slapped her back. This was so out of character for me, but I was fed up. I swear that I saw on my mother's face then the realization of, crap, she's now taller and stronger than me, and she didn't do it again. At least the slapping. And that's where I'm going to leave today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.